The Western media is being strangely quiet about an incident in Russia that could have sparked a nuclear exchange, Snyder reports. What happened? One of Russia's most important early warning radar installations that was designed to track incoming nuclear missiles was destroyed May 23rd. But the big corporate news outlets in the Western world are hardly saying anything about this. Without that installation, there is a giant hole in Russia's ability to track incoming missiles from the direction of the Middle East. So this is a really big deal. During an all-out nuclear war, early warning radar installations would be among the very first targets, and the Russians are telling us that according to their nuclear protocols, the destruction of the Armavir radar station could have allowed them to conduct a nuclear strike in return. Thankfully, that did not happen, but this should have been front-page news all over the world. It's being reported that the Armavir radar station in southwestern Russia was substantially damaged by Ukrainian drones on Thursday. Satellite imagery confirms a Russian strategic early warning radar site in the southwestern end of the country was substantially damaged in a reported Ukrainian drone attack earlier this week. This looks to be a first-of-its-kind event on the site linked to Russia's general strategic defense, and as such it points to a new worrisome dimension in the conflict, especially when it comes to potential use of nuclear. A satellite image taken May 23rd in the war zone obtained from Planet Labs of the Armavir radar station in Russia's southwestern Krasnodar Krai shows significant debris around one of the site's two radar buildings. These are ultra-high frequency UHF over-the-horizon OTH radars that are part of Russia's nuclear ballistic missile early warning system. There were two Voronezh DM units at that particular location, and it appears that both of them are now inoperable, and is likely to stay that way for quite some time. What can be seen in the satellite imagery aligns with pictures taken from ground level that emerged on social media earlier, which show very severe damage to both structures housing the Voronezh Armavir. There's also clear evidence of multiple hits on the radar buildings, and it's worth noting that the radar arrays are generally very sensitive and fragile systems, and even relative limited damage can result in a successful hit, rendering them inoperable for an extended period of time. The Armavir radar station is highly advanced, and in 2013, Russian President Putin bragged that it could detect even the most inconspicuous target in fractions of a second, detecting launches of various types of missiles, hundreds and even thousands of kilometers from the borders. If someone hit an early warning radar installation in the US, all of our military officials would be really freaking out right now. But because this happened in Russia, everyone is acting as if nothing of significance just happened. Of course, the truth is that the Ukrainians are very foolish to attack this facility, because we're being told that this attack was enough to meet the conditions the Russian government laid out publicly in 2020 for actions that could trigger a nuclear retaliatory strike. The two Voronezh DMs at the facility are a key part of Russia's largest strategic early warning network, and their loss, even temporarily, could only degrade the country's ability to detect incoming nuclear threats. There are also concerns about how this could impact the ability of Russia's overall strategic warning network to evaluate potential threats and eliminate false positives due to possible loss of overlapping coverage in certain areas. Beyond that, it's been pointed out that this event on Armavir could meet the conditions the Russian government laid out publicly in 2020 for actions that would trigger a nuclear retaliatory strike. Russia's early warning network is part of the country's broader nuclear deterrent posture. Now, in fact, Dmitry Rogozin is publicly acknowledging that this is quite true, that the Russians could have used nuclear weapons to respond to this attack. The former head of the state company Roscosmos and now a senator at the Federation Council of the Russian Federation, Dmitry Rogozin, reported that the Ukrainian forces attacked an installation of the Russian missile attack warning system in the Krasnodar territory. This is a key element of the battle command system of the country's strategic nuclear forces, he said. And the senator reports that as a result of this, the Kuban early warning system facility was damaged. In effect, he said this means that Russia has the right to consider this attack as a global threat to its state and national security, which, according to our doctrine, allows the use of nuclear weapons in response. This is terrible. At the same time, it's not entirely clear who made this essentially irrational decision, writes Rogozin. I wish that I could get everyone to understand how serious this is, he said. And also Michael Snyder says. And here in the United States, the possibility of nuclear war is not even an issue. And to most Americans, it's so unlikely that it's not even worth thinking about. But over in Russia, national leaders are talking about nuclear war all the time, and it's a constant topic on news shows. If the Russians consider their national existence to be seriously threatened, they will use nuclear weapons. And it certainly does not help that Western politicians keep talking about how they will carve up Russia after they help Ukrainians win the conflict. Now, last week, Russian media took note of the latest provocative statements by Estonia's Prime Minister Kaja Kallas. She had led Russia's tiny Baltic neighbor into a firm, hawkish anti-Moscow position. The country was part of the wave of Eastern European nations to join NATO in the mid-2000s during the Bush era, and she is calling for the breakup of the Russian Federation. Kallas proposed during a debate in the country's capital of Tallinn last week that Russia could become much smaller as a desired outcome of the Ukraine war. Russia's defeat is not a bad thing because, she said, then they could really be a change in society. She said that currently Russia's federation can actually be seen as making up many different nations and that they could be naturally broken into separate states. This is what the globalists intend to do, and the Russians realize this, and the Russians would do whatever it takes to prevent that from happening. Meanwhile, it appears that the major conflict between U.S. and China is getting closer. According to Daily Mail, the U.S. military is actively preparing what could be happening between them and China. The United States military actively preparing to go to war with China over growing fears of an invasion of Taiwan. Sadly, most of us in the Western world have no idea what's really going on out there. Most of us just have a good old time as our leaders drag us towards the brink of disaster. When the time finally arrives, destruction will come upon millions of people very suddenly, and if we want to avoid war, the time to do so is now. Because once missiles start flying, it will be way too late. This is by Michael Snyder on End of the American Dream. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Michael's new book entitled Chaos, available in paperback and for Kindle on Amazon, and you can check out his new Substack newsletter right here. About the author, Michael Snyder, extremely controversial new book, Chaos, available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon. He's also written 7 other books available on Amazon, including End Times, 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters, Commissions Earned. When you purchase any of Michael's books, you help to support the work that he's doing. You can also get his articles by email as soon as he publishes them by subscribing to his Substack newsletter. Michael has published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, The Most Important News, and he always freely and happily allows others to republish those articles on their own websites. You can connect with Michael on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and share his articles on your own social media accounts. It's definitely a great help. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, we strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.